Hello, everyone. How's it going? Well, the book we're going to be talking about today, let's face it, new book by Stephen King. It's a cause for celebration, and I want to talk about all that in just a minute. But first, I want to let you know that my book of short horror stories called The Things That Happen at Night is available at the link in the description for only $3. I hope you buy it. I hope you enjoy it. Also, down below, there's a link if you want to sign up for my newsletter. I send those out twice a month, and also my blog for all my written reviews. That's also down below, along with, of course, my Twitter and Instagram. So check all those out. Now let's get on with the video. All right. So, of course, the book we're going to be talking about today is Stephen King's new book called Fairy Tale. The man is unstoppable. Let's put it that way. Whether you're a big Stephen King fan like me or you're not, he is probably the most prolific author of our time, maybe of any time. I mean, the man's going to be, I believe, 74 years old on September 21st. And this is, if my information is correct, his 64th standalone novel. Now, that's not counting short stories, that's not counting novellas, that's not counting nonfiction, and that's not counting books that came out in a series. If you total all those up, it's over 100. And he didn't publish Carrie until, I believe, 1976. So think about that. The man is just a writing machine. But it's not just that he writes fast. It's that he writes... the reason we all love him, I think, is because he writes fast, but he also writes so well. And this book is no exception. As a matter of fact, as soon as I finished this book, I knew it was going to go in my list, my personal list of top 10 Stephen King books, maybe even top 5. That's how good I thought it was, because you can tell he had a lot of fun with this book. He put a lot of heart into it. It flowed really well, and it's basically a big old love letter to fairy tales, with, of course, the standard Stephen King horrific twists and turns that he's known for. And I think we can all say that when it comes to Stephen King, he does one thing probably better than anybody else on the planet. He gives us characters that are easily recognizable, right? That we are familiar with. Could be somebody, these characters could be like somebody you know, or somebody you know of. They're just very familiar to us. And then he just places them in these extraordinary, sometimes horrifying circumstances that they're not equipped for. And sometimes that works out for them. And of course, we've all read those books. Sometimes not so much. And this one is no different. We have a 17-year-old high school kid, very athletic. He's involved in all the sports. Something horrific happened to his mother. A horrific accident right at the beginning of the book. We'll read about that. And his dad couldn't handle it and kind of turned to the alcohol, affecting his life, affecting his job, to the point where our protagonist thought they were going to be homeless. And even though his dad wasn't abusive toward him in any way, he just wasn't present. And so it put a lot of stress on this kid, on this boy, to fend for himself and kind of raise himself there, because his dad just wasn't mentally around, or physically, because of the alcohol. His dad did find help, though, went to AA, got himself sobered up. And one day, the kid's coming home. He's riding home on his bicycle, and he hears a dog in the back of this house. A house that all the neighbors call the psycho house, because it's an eerie-looking house, not very well kept. And the man inside, nobody really sees him or talks to him. He's not friendly. As a matter of fact, he's actually anti-friendly. He's very mean, very curmudgeonly. And kids are scared of him, of course. But he hears a dog whining in the back of the house, almost pleading for help. So he takes a chance, jumps the fence, and when he gets back there, he sees his neighbor, this old man who fell off a ladder, obviously broken his leg, and he decides he's going to help this old man for whatever reason. And the man spends more time in the hospital than what he thought, but the boy says, I'm going to watch your dog, I'll take care of your house, I'll make sure I get your mail, and make sure your dog's taken care of, because that's all the old man thinks about is his dog. It's his only friend, his only companion. But it takes a little while longer than what they expected, and then the man has to leave the hospital and go through physical therapy at home. He's not able to move or get around because of his injuries. And our protagonist decides to take care of him also in that situation, to move in with him to help the old man. And they form this friendship over this. At first, it's not a trusting friendship. The old man wonders what this kid wants from him. He's, like I said, he's very curmudgeonly, to put it mildly. He just doesn't trust anybody, doesn't like anybody. Very rough, very gruff. But eventually they do form this bond, this friendship. And then the old man unexpectedly dies. And I'm not going to tell you anything about that, but he unexpectedly dies, and he leaves everything to this kid in his will. His house and his dog, who the kid has become very, very attached to. And I want to say something about the dog. The dog is going to be like almost like a main secondary character throughout this whole book. The dog is the reason, basically, for everything that happens once he makes a decision to go to the back of the house and help this old man. But we don't hear from the dog's mind, of course. We don't get insight into what the dog's thinking or anything. But the dog is always present throughout the book. And in the section of the book where he's not, or where she's not present, it's very noticeable. It's very almost jarring. That's how well Stephen King writes, and that's how much you'll become attached to this animal. She's a German Shepherd, and her name's Radar. And she is a huge, huge part of the story. So don't just dismiss it as having an animal in there for the sake of having an animal. Very integral to the plot. But once the old man dies, he leaves him not only his house and his dog, but also a tape that explains some very weird things. Could be gibberish. Could be the clanking around of an old man's mind. But it concerns something in the shed out back that's always been padlocked, that the boy has never been inside. So he decides to go check it out, and sure enough, there's some stairs in a hole in this man's shed that leads to another magical world. And this is where our story really takes off. And this world is based on fairy tales, right? Rumpelstiltskin plays a big part. The three little pigs, the little old lady who lived in the shoe. But of course, Stephen King doesn't just take these and put them there outright. He puts his own twisted spin on these fairy tales. This is a world that can be beautiful, can be full of love and full of life, and yet can also be horrifying and full of terror and full of mean-spirited creatures. Because we find out the land is cursed, this other world is cursed. And now it's up to our protagonist and his dog to figure out how to break the curse, how to help these people, because he meets people in this world that he becomes fast friends with. They're very nice, very kind, but others that are not, that are out to actually actively harm him or perhaps even kill him. And it's these creatures that bring the chilling, frightening aspects to this story. We have creatures whose descriptions defy explanation. I'm not going to give any of that away neither. And when you get to the last part, when you get down there where we get to visit the dark well, as it's called, there's a creature down there, and Stephen King pulls the rug out from under us and gives us kind of a cosmic horror creature and feel and vibe. And it's very, very terrifying what's going on. And to consider that if this creature gets loose from this dark well, it could not only destroy this underground fairy tale world, but there are other worlds out there we're told throughout this book, and even his own, even our world, the one that we know, could be destroyed by this creature. So there's a lot riding on the 17-year-old kid to not only save this fairy tale world that he's come to know and that some of the people he's come to love, but also our world as well. It's just a fantastical, well-told story. And I absolutely loved every single bit of this book. About the first third is us building the characters, building the world, letting us know how all these elements are coming together, introducing us to things that are going to be very important later. And then we find that fairy tale world, and we're constant there throughout most of the rest of the book. But it's not just because it's a fairy tale world doesn't mean it's all, sugar and spice. There's some very horrific, very terrifying versions of fairy tales you'll be familiar with that are waiting for him. And it's not going to turn out well for everybody. Let me just put it that way. I'm not going to give anything else away, though. I promise. Yeah, this was a fantastic book. It's about 600 pages long, I think, which is about right for Stephen King. But you don't mind any of it because it just zips right along. It flowed out of him. It was like, he just gave us this love letter to fairy tales. So if you ever wondered what if Stephen King wrote a fairy tale, this is the book you want to get. And of course, I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to purchase that book on Amazon. I highly recommend you do. Easily in my top 10 Stephen King novels, maybe, like I said, maybe even top 5 there. That's how much I loved this book. And also check out all my links down below. I got my Twitter, Instagram, my blog, and of course my newsletter. You want to check that out. My book links down there. Yeah, check all that out. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time, spending it here with me. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.